Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Dr. Spotfire live stream. This is our monthly sessions, and today we're going to talk about the new action mods in Spotfire. I'm very excited to talk about that. David is here with me. David, you want to say hi to the audience?
Hi, everyone.
Okay, so before we continue, let's just do a quick reminder of what Spotfire. Spotfire is a visual data science platform. For those that you know, it's more than a tool. It's a platform that helps smart people rapidly create interactive visual analytics applications to solve complex industry problems. And the Dr. Spotfire, what the Dr. Spotfire is, we held the first Tuesday of every month live, different channels, YouTube, LinkedIn, and we're a team of three. We have experts on the field, data scientists, expert in oil and gas and different industries. And how the Dr. Spotfire works? Well, we take your inputs through different means, Spotfire Ideas portal or the Spotfire community. I encourage all of you to go to the Spotfire community and ask your questions for the next video, quick tip, or what have you. Also through social media, LinkedIn or email or X or YouTube comments. And the output, when we take your customer input, it comes to customer, it can translate into custom visualization. Maybe you have specific needs in a specific industry need that might be helpful for the industry. Data functions, you have a specific requirement, or Spotfire apps, accelerators, data connectors, articles, more on that in the community.spotfire.com. So learning is not driven by answers, but by questions. This is our motto. So here in Dr. Spotfire, we encourage all of you to ask your questions, and we either respond them during the session or at the end of the session. And with me, I have David Boot Olazabal, and he's going to present the new Spotfire Action Mods. And David, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you, Jose, for the introduction. Welcome, everyone, to this new Action Mods session in Dr. Spotfire. So let's get started. Today, I want to discuss with you what Spotfire Action Mods actually are and how can you use them. And we'll have a quick demo on them. Also, because you can just create your own action mods, we'll have a demo on how to create your action mods, create your scripts within action mods, and test them with Spotfire. And at the end, we will close the session with tips and tricks and a summary of this session. What are action mods actually? Well, action mods are a bundled piece of actions, which we call scripts, and it's an extension framework on top of Spotfire. We just have it added onto Spotfire as of 14.4. And the great thing about action mods is that it's scalable and portable, which means that you have less maintenance on your scripts and you can easier use it throughout your Spotfire user community. And the best thing, and that's especially for end users and analysts alike, you don't have to know anything about coding. You can just plug and play your action mods into your existing analysis file and start working with it.
That's a good point, David.
Thank you.
Sorry for the interruption, but yeah, that's a good point. That the action mods is just another way to extend a Spotfire, and we're just going to cover that a little bit later, right? And there's no coding required. You can just use the Spotfire, and you're going to show you something like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, we're going to just dive into that, how you can use Spotfire action mods in your existing analysis file. But if you do want to create your own action mods, then of course you need to do some coding. And a great way to start your coding journey is our Spotfire mods documentation. And we'll just go into that later when we do our demo on the creation of your own action mods. But first, let's go into a demo of how to use action mods, plug and play, drag and drop, loading from the library, etc. So I'm just going to open my Spotfire analyst and already have a simple analysis file, just one data table. I have two visualizations. One is just a table. The other one is a cross table based on the same data source. And we don't have anything in here yet, and I'll just prove it because on the left-hand side in the flyout, we have this lightning bolt icon, which
That's
is
new.
the placeholder for, that's new in 14.4 indeed. That's the placeholder where you can just see your actions, which are tied to your analysis file. It's completely empty. And what we'll do, we'll going to drag and drop this particular action mod onto my analysis file and see what happens next. So I can just drop it anywhere in the analysis file, doesn't really make a difference. And if I and if I click on my lightning bolt, I see that my action mod has been added to this analysis file, and I can just use it. So let's see what we can do with. I have two scripts in here, and one is switch cross table axis, and the other one is replace empty values in a table. And you will see for both of them, first start with this one, I'm asked to enter a value. That means that we have parameterized this particular script. I just want to select my cross table visualization, click on run, and you'll see immediately that my cross table has been flipping the axis columns. And of course, if I'm not happy with the way it looks, I can just run it again, select the same cross table again, click on run, and it will just flip the axis back. Now in this column, the PE ratio column, you can see that there are null values, empty values, and you can see that in the table as well. And I'd like to replace them with zeros. So I will go back into my flyout and click on the other script that I have within this action mod. I will click on it. Once again, I'm asked a couple of questions, parameters, select the table. I am asked to enter the column name, and I'll just put in a 0, and we'll see what happens. It just replaces my null values with my zeros. And in the data canvas, you'll see that my data table has been granted a transformation, the replace value, and that's because of the action that we just carried out. The great thing is that this works perfectly fine if you have the analyst client at your disposal. But if you're a business user or an end user with only the web based client at your disposal, this is not going to work because you don't have the flyout available. So what we can do is we can just take this switch cross table axis and drop it onto the visualization and make it stick. I'm asked once again, because there's the parameter, I'm asked once again to fill it in, or I can just say prompt for input, which makes it more flexible. And I can do the same for my replace empty value columns. I'm just stick it to this particular visualization. And once again, I will just set the prompts for input, say done. And now I can just save it and run it from the web client. Well, I've already prepared it. So let's go to my web client. And here's my demo web user, what I just showed in the analyst client. I don't have the flyout because I'm in viewing mode, but I still can make use of my action mod script, selecting my cross table visualization, and it does the same job as I just showed in the analyst client. And the same goes, of course, for this particular script. Let's just show it quickly so it's covered. And there we are, changed to zeros. So web users, business users, as well as analysts alike can make use of the new action mods feature in Spotfire, as long as you make them properly stick to the visualizations for your business end users. Right, so that concludes our first demo of how you can use your action mods with plug and play into Spotfire. Let's go back to the presentation. On the other hand, if you're looking for an action mod tailor-made for your use case, you need to create them yourselves, or you can pick the codes from somewhere else, but you need to do some coding. And for that, we have to have a running instance of Spotfire 14.4 or higher. We need to have Visual Studio Code installed because that's the application we use to create the scripts in it. And we have Node.js installed version 20 or later. Those are the prerequisites that we need.
Okay, so for those who are familiar with also the Spotfire visualization mods, it's the same environment. You can use Visual Studio Code and everything just to either modify existing code or create new visualizations or new action mods. But just want to make sure that everybody understands that you don't have to have this development environment in order to use mods. You can download them from your community, just like the same way the visualization mods work. You can also find them in the library and just start using and just configuring the parameters.
Yeah, absolutely. So once you have your prerequisites, and if you're already familiar with visualization mods, then you already have them, you can start creating your project in Visual Studio Code. Well, you do so by creating a folder on your machine, and then you can create your own action mod by running this particular command in the terminal. Sorry for that. Once you create your first action mod, you're also installed to do the npm install command and the npm run build command, and we'll see that when we do the demo. We'll see how that works. You of course can use GitLab to store your code in it, and if you want to do that beforehand, make sure that you create your repository first in GitLab, synchronize it in Visual Studio Code before you start creating the action mod. I started without GitLab because I just started out with action mods a couple of months back, and for me it was just trying out. And if you're comfortable enough, I would suggest to use GitLab first and then start creating your action mods because it's easier, shareable, your code is more secure, etc., etc. But we'll not do that in the demo for the sake of time. Now, once your action mod is created and you have installed it, you have built it, you can then start filling up your action mod with the code, the script, so to say. You run the command for the creation of the code in the terminal, same as you did for the creation of the action mod, and that command will create a TS file, TypeScript file. You can open it, you can edit it, etc., etc., because the initial file that is created is just a placeholder for your code. It just, and we'll see that later, it just does something, a starter and an end point, but there's no code in it yet. It also creates a new entry in the mod manifest JSON file, and you might, depending on your code and what you need to do with it, you might need to tailor that a bit more than the default entry, and we'll also see that in the demo. Once you're completely done, you just push Ctrl+Shift+B to start the action mod development server, and that's needed to connect from the analyst back to your code in your Visual Studio environment. And this Ctrl+Shift+B also creates the JS script that is needed to execute the script in Spotfire. Once you've done that, you can then start testing your action mod and your scripts in the action mod from within the Spotfire Analyst client. You go to the Tools, Development Mods Development menu, you connect back to the action mod development server, try a test run, and if it works out perfectly fine, and we'll see in our demo if it does or not, then you're done. You can disconnect. You can then save the mod as a file or save it to the library for use throughout your Spotfire community. But if you do encounter errors, you can start a debug session, and you start a debug session from within your analyst client. You don't start it in Visual Studio Code, but in the analyst. That's important to know if you want to do debugging. After you have made the connection to the debug environment, You can add breakpoints in Visual Studio Code and then start debugging from within the Visual Studio Code, and it will just go on as usual. Beware though, the debug server has a different port number than the one you use for your Spotfire Action Mod server, so the development one. That's just something that you need to be aware of. But if you don't put in the right one, you just will have a failing debug session anyway. But that's something you need to be aware of. So right, let's start creating our own action mod. So like I mentioned before, you create a new folder, you create the action mod, we use the code in the terminal, and then we create a script and start the action mod development server. And then we'll see how to connect from it from the Spotfire analyst, run script, disconnect, and then we can just save it to the library or save it as a mod file. All right, let's go into my Visual Studio. So my Visual Studio is clean. I'll just open a folder. I do have one already created, the folder. It's action mod save to library, and we're gonna create a script for that. So initially it's just blank. My terminal is here, and I will just create my action mod by using this command, npx spotfire mod SDK new action. It's similar to the one for visualization, but instead of action, you would then use visualization. Run the code. It was just build the first skeleton of my action mod, and then I will just run the npm install command, and then afterwards the npm run build command. And at every step, more of the skeleton of my action mod will be added. And you can see that on the Explorer side in the left-hand side of the Visual Studio Code. npm run build.
So all these commands are documented in the documentation that you're gonna point us later where to find all these steps if you want to go through the same process. But basically what you're doing is taking a template by running some commands and then installing the necessary libraries, and then you're gonna modify the code to do with that hello world template, modify it in a way that you can do some automate some actions.
Yes, that is correct. As you can see, we have by default a script installed, and that's the hello world script that Jose referred to. And that's also the one that's showing up in the mod manifest JSON. As soon as I add another script, it will be added to my mod manifest JSON, because the mod manifest JSON is the one that's steering what the end user or the analyst will see in Spotfire Analyst client. And the scripts will be here under my source, my scripts folder. So let's just go into the documentation, and I'll just show you quickly. Here's the documentation. This is a great way to start, as Jose mentioned. There's the getting started guide with explaining the prerequisites. There's the action mods part, and you have information on developing action mods, a tutorial. We have snippets, and I will just pick one of the snippets today for this demo. Information about the API, and there's some frequently asked questions. But we'll go to the snippets because I already set up my action mod. I just want to populate my action mod with this particular safety analysis to library script. So I'm just gonna copy paste this one into my Visual Studio Code, run the script. It will add a script in my scripts folder, and it will add also a specific entry in my mod manifest JSON. Now, if you go back to the snippets, we'll see that my mod manifest JSON entry, the one that I'm supposed to use, is way more extensive than the default one. So I will copy this one, and I will just replace the default one, save my manifest JSON. And And there's a couple of things to know about the mod manifest JSON. In this particular save the analysis to the library snippet, it says it requires the following capabilities: library write and library read, and it also requires a wrap-in transaction to be false. Now, this particular one, the wrap-in transaction to be false, is part of my script entry in the mod manifest JSON. The library read or library write is in the capabilities, and that's not something that's available in the script entries. It is available though here. So it's basically saying my whole action mod will use the capabilities library read and library write. Now, the good thing about TypeScript is that as soon as you type something, it will just offer you some options. It will autocomplete. And in this case, library read, library write is tied to my capability. So it knows that the capabilities only can have library read or library write. We need both of them because I need to read the library and I need to be able to write it. So this should be sufficient, saving my mod manifest JSON. I still have my script. I can delete it here from my mod manifest JSON, so it will not clutter up my action mod. I can leave it in here. For the moment, I'll leave it here, but you can just delete it without any repercussions. So let's see what's actually my script about. Like I mentioned, there's just a starter and an endpoint, and your script should be put in here. And you also already see some strange things. This means that's an error, and you have a quick fix, and you can use Copilot to fix it or explain it. We'll leave it for the time being because normally this will be solved when you do the Control-Shift-B of your script. But to do so, I need to pick up my script first. So let's just copy the script.
Before you paste the script into the Visual Studio Code, can you control and use your mouse wheel to increase the font on Visual Studio so we can see where exactly you're pasting?
Yes.
Control Shift should control on the mouse wheel should increase the font size. Is it not?
No, it doesn't do. No.
Oh,
doesn't
okay.
do it.
Oh, that's okay.
Well, in this case, I'm just replacing the complete function.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Because I don't need to put in some extra code in between. I'll just save it. It is saved. I'm still having the problem according to Visual Studio Code. I'll just click on Control-Shift-B, or I can just go to my terminal, run the build task, which is basically the same. And this will start my development server. And this should also create a connection to my server. So in this case, it's 127.0.01 on port 1890. I'll just kill it.
So that's a good indicator when I run and compile and I have up and running my live server, right? If I don't see that screen.
Yeah. And you also see that this command solved the issue that we saw before with the save analysis to library parameters.
Yeah. Okay.
If I go back to my Spotfire analyst, I'm going to connect via tools, via development, mods development. I see already the available action mods in the analysis, the one that we dragged and drop into the analysis file. I can connect to my development server. It's the same URL, same port number. And here we are. Here's my action mod saved to library, and then I can test it. I will do a test run, and I see my script, and I see my saved analysis to library, and that's because of the mod manifest JSON. If I delete this one in my mod manifest JSON, I'm asked to reload the manifest, and it will just give me the save the analysis library. I will not do that because it's not really needed, but It's
So
just
you can have multiple scripts in one mod manifest. All your script you
yes,
can put them there in a bundle.
yeah,
And then you
yeah,
can choose which to use.
exactly, yeah. You can just create an action mod with different visualizations, bar chart, line chart, tree map, etc., that make use of your company's color coding scheme, and you just plug and play it into your analysis, and by clicking it, it's just makes the creation of a bar chart with the complete color coding scheme, etc., way easy by just clicking it.
Okay,
Well,
so now it's in the library. Okay, good.
saving analysis to action mods Dr. Spotfire. Let's see if it really did that. And I'm an admin, so I can just see the library admin. Here we are. It just got saved.
And it's a mod file, right? So you can also find them in the library. For those
Yes.
who are in a large company, they can also find existing action mods just the same way you do with the visualization mods.
Yes. So if I disconnect now and close this one, I can just open my flyout, and I can just say save as local file or save as library item. So let's save this one as library item. And you can see there's a couple of them already created in my specific action mods folder. And the same way I was able to drag and drop it from file, I can also select more actions, find items in the library. It will just search for the action, like Jose just mentioned, and then pick any of these. In this case, reload all data. It just reloads the data, and you can see that I now have 3 different action mods available in my analysis file. If I want to make them stick, so my web users will be able to use them, I have to do the same, put it in here or as a right click menu option, etc. Here's my reload all data action. And that's basically how you can just interact with the Visual Studio Code that lets you create your action mod, your script, and the Spotfire side. And once you're happy with your action mod, you just disconnect from it, and then either save it to the library or save it as a file, as a mod file, so you can share it, so you can do the drag and drop in an ls file. And that's basically how you can start off with the Spotfire action mods.
Perfect. So can you show us again, David, how to look at existing action mods in the library?
Yes, of course. So from the flyout, you click on more actions, find items in the library, and by default, it will already search for type action. So only action mods will be available. And as you can see here, I have one action mod that has a different icon. The icon can be changed, so you don't need to stick to the lightning bolts, but you can just change the icon.svg that's been created when you create the action mod. You can change that in your code. And in my case, my action mod saved to library has an icon svg, which is the lightning bolt. And if you want to change that, just pick any svg file, rename it icon svg, and copy it over this one that's automatically created from the whole creation of your action mod process in Visual Studio. Right, so some tips and tricks to conclude this session. We already had discussed some of them. I would encourage you to use the available snippets to start from, besides going through documentation in the first place. But the snippets is a great way to start building your own action mods and playing around with action mods to get a bit of a feeling for how to create an action mod and how to work with it from the Spotfire side. Also use the API documentation, and you can find them through the action mod documentation. which I showed earlier. You can also type your code, and TypeScript will autocomplete or offer you any options for the next steps connected to the namespaces, and we saw that with the capabilities. Very powerful. You can use Copilot in Visual Studio Code when errors are found to fix it, and we saw that with the initial creation of the script, that you could use the Copilot to fix it. You can also use an online converter that converts code to TypeScript. I've tried it out myself with IronPython. It's certainly not 100% covering all the gaps, but it's getting you in the right direction. And last but not least, you can always go to the Spotfire community and ask your questions that you have concerning eventual action mod code or how to, etc., etc.
Perfect, David. Well, speaking about questions, we have some questions. We have some time to address them. One of them is from Amit. I mean, at the beginning, this question popped up at the beginning, but it's asking if it's necessary to configure these actions only from the typical cloud environment. When you create a mod, do you have to configure from the cloud, or you can do it in the client?
Well, you have to go through the client. So any mod you have, you picked it from somewhere else, you downloaded it, or you build it yourself. You have to load it in the client. That's the only way you can just add a mod onto an analysis file, and then you make it stick, save it to your typical cloud environment, so your end users will be able to use the action mod and the scripts within the action mod that you have defined for them.
Okay, so if you're developing a mod, then you have to use your desktop. But if you want to use a mod, you can open it from the cloud or from the client, and then may adjust those parameters. We have another question here. When you were demonstrating the data quality issue, can this also help to resolve the PI-related information or mass data? So I guess this question is, since you are doing a data quality issue, that was just an example of the action mod that you can perform. But basically behind the action mods is a script that you can automate, and it uses the IronPython API. Most of those calls are used, the mods are, it's a wrapper around that API. Not everything is exposed for security reasons, but if you find some use cases, just let us know. But that's what it is. It's through JavaScript you can automate all these concepts, and you can do all kind of other problems that you can resolve. And those are the two questions. If you have any other questions and you're happy to watch this video, you're watching this video offline, then I encourage you to make those comments there. It's going to be at the bottom, the description of the video. All those links, all for the documentation for the action mods, are going to be available there. And don't forget to subscribe for our recording sessions. Remember, it's live the first Tuesday of every month. It's an opportunity for you to engage and ask questions. Then we have, if you want to contact us further, you can just send us an email, if not through the community, as I mentioned at the beginning of the session. And then you can suggest a demo or a data function or script or something. We'll walk together. Thank you, and that's it. Thank you very much, David, for sharing that valuable information, and hope you guys see you next time.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right.